Murder at the Riverside Club. A Frank Murray investigation. Narrated by Frank Murray, private investigator. There are places in this city where money talks, and everyone else listens. Places where the drinks cost more than my car payment, and the members treat the staff like furniture. The Riverside Club was one of those places. A private establishment on the waterfront where the city's elite gathered to make deals, break hearts, and pretend they were better than the rest of us. I'd never been inside. People like me don't get invited to places like that. We're the ones they call when things go wrong, when their perfect little worlds crack, and they need someone to sweep up the mess before the neighbors notice. The name's Frank Murray. I'm a private investigator working out an office above Chen's Golden Dragon on 4th Street. 15 years I've been doing this job, and I've learned that the rich bleed the same as everyone else. They just pay better for someone to clean up the blood. It was a Friday night when I got the call. I was 3 drinks into forgetting a cheating spouse case that had paid half of what the client promised when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Frank Murray. I said, my voice rough from the bourbon. Mr. Murray, my name is Dominic Castellano. I'm the manager of the Riverside Club. We have a situation that requires discretion and your particular skills. I sat up straighter. The Riverside Club. That meant money. Real money. What kind of situation? The kind that needs to be handled before the police arrive. Can you be here in 20 minutes? 20 minutes later, I was pulling up to a building that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought columns and marble were subtle. A valet took one look at my Chevy Nova, and his expression said he'd rather touch a dead rat. I tossed him the keys anyway. Dominic Castellano met me at the door, mid-50s, Italian suit, the kind of composed face you get from dealing with rich people's problems. He led me through a lobby that smelled like cigar smoke and old money, past a dining room where couples ate $70 steaks and pretended to enjoy each other's company. We ended up in a private card room on the 3rd floor. 4 men sat around a poker table, frozen like a photograph. None of them were playing cards. They were all staring at the 5th chair, where a man sat slumped forward, his face in a pile of poker chips. Blood had pooled on the green felt, dripping slowly onto the Persian rug below. Meet Marcus Holloway, Castellano said quietly, or what's left of him. Someone stabbed him in the back 30 minutes ago. Literally. I approached the body carefully, keeping my hands in my pockets. Marcus Holloway was maybe 50, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. The knife was still in his back. Looked like a letter opener. Ornate handle, blade buried between his shoulder blades. Quick, efficient. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. You haven't called the police. I observed. Not yet, Castellano said. These 4 gentlemen are some of the most influential people in the city. Before this becomes a media circus, they wanted someone to assess the situation. Someone who understands discretion. Translation. They wanted to get their story straight before the cops showed up. I looked at the 4 men, each one avoiding my eyes. Let me guess, I said. You were all here when it happened, but nobody saw anything. The lights went out, said the man closest to me. He was in his 60s, silver hair, the kind of tan that comes from golf courses and yacht decks. We were playing poker. Marcus was winning. Then suddenly everything went dark. We heard a sound like a gasp, and when the lights came back on, Marcus was dead. How long were the lights out? Maybe 30 seconds, said another man, younger, with slick back hair and nervous eyes. Maybe a minute. It felt like forever. And nobody moved? Nobody tried to help? Silence. The kind that tells you everything you need to know. I turned to Castellano. Who else was in the club tonight? About 40 members in total. The card room is private. Members only. Invitation required. These 5 were the only ones with access to this room tonight. 5 including the victim. Correct. I looked at each man again. 4 players, 1 victim. Lights out for less than a minute. That meant one of these 4 had killed Marcus Holloway. The question was which one, and more importantly, why? Mr. Murray, Castellano said. These gentlemen are willing to pay you $10,000 to investigate this matter before the police are called, to provide them with clarity on what happened. $10,000. That was 6 months of rent and enough left over to finally fix the leak in my office ceiling. But it also meant getting in bed with people who thought money could buy them out of murder. I'll need to talk to each of them separately, I said. And I'll need complete access to this room and anywhere else that's relevant. And Castellano? The police are getting called either way. But I'll give you 2 hours to get your story straight. Castellano nodded. Fair enough. I pulled out my notebook. Time to find out which of these rich bastards was a killer. The silver-haired man's name was Richard Pemberton. He owned half the commercial real estate in the downtown core and had a reputation for ruthless business dealings. We sat in a small private lounge while the others waited in separate rooms. I've known Marcus for 20 years, Pemberton said, swirling a scotch in his glass. We've been competitors, partners, and friends at various points. Tonight, we were just playing cards. Who invited him? I did. We had a standing game every Friday. Marcus, myself, Jonathan Chun, David Reeves, and occasionally a fifth player. Tonight, that was Trevor Walsh. I wrote down the names. What were the stakes? 5,000 buy-in, 1,500 blinds. Standard for us. That's a lot of money for standard. Pemberton smiled without warmth. Mr. Murray, the men in that room collectively control about $8 billion in assets. 5,000 is what we tipped the valet. How much was Marcus up? About 40,000. He'd had a good run the last hour. Anyone upset about that? It's poker. Everyone loses sometimes. But something flickered in Pemberton's eyes. There and gone. But Marcus was winning more than sometimes. I pressed. Pemberton set down his glass. Marcus had a gift, or a tell, something that let him read people better than anyone I've ever played against. Yes, it was frustrating, but not frustrating enough to murder someone over. What about business? Any conflicts there? Always, Pemberton said. Marcus and I have been in a bidding war over a property development in the Harbor District. It's worth about $200 million when completed. But Mr. Murray, we're civilized men. We settle disputes with lawyers and contracts, not violence. Civilized men don't usually end up with knives in their backs. I observed. Pemberton stood. I've told you what I know. Talk to the others. You'll find they have just as much reason to dislike Marcus as I do, which is to say, none worth killing over. After he left, I sat in the quiet lounge and considered. Pemberton was smooth, practiced, the kind of guy who could lie while passing a polygraph. But that flicker when I asked about Marcus winning, that was real. That was something. Jonathan Chun was next. Despite the last name, he looked nothing like my landlady, Mrs. Chun, who brought me egg rolls on Tuesdays. This Chun was early 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of intensity that comes from never losing at anything. I run Chun Industries, he said without preamble. We specialize in tech investments and venture capital. Marcus was an investor in 3 of my companies. Good investments? 2 were excellent. 1 was a disaster, lost about $15 million. Marcus blamed me for due diligence failures, threatened to sue. Now we were getting somewhere. $15 million sounds like motive. Chun laughed, but it was bitter. $15 million is a bad quarter for Marcus. He had that much in his couch cushions. The lawsuit threat was posturing. He wanted leverage on our next deal. What deal? There's a biotech startup I've been cultivating. Revolutionary cancer treatment. Potentially worth billions. Marcus wanted in at ground floor pricing. I told him no. He didn't like hearing no. So he threatened to sue over the old investment to pressure you on the new one. Exactly. Marcus played hardball. But so do I. I would have beaten him in court or shut him out of the new deal. I didn't need to kill him. Where were you when the lights went out? In my seat. Same as everyone. I heard Marcus gasp, heard something fall, probably chips, and then nothing. When the lights came back, I saw the knife and the blood. Chen's hands trembled slightly. I've seen a lot of things in business, Mr. Murray, but I've never seen a man murdered 2 feet away from me. Did you notice anyone move during the blackout? It was pitch black. I couldn't see my own hands. But I heard breathing, close by. Someone was moving, but I couldn't tell who. After Chin left, I made more notes. 15 million in lost investments. A new deal worth billions. Threats and leverage. Chun had motive, but he also seemed genuinely shaken. Then again, some people are good actors. David Reeves was the nervous one I'd noticed earlier. Mid-30s, investment banker, with the kind of cocaine energy that comes from too much stress and not enough sleep. He kept checking his phone, his leg bouncing under the table. I barely knew Marcus, he said. This was my third game with them. I'm the new guy. How'd you get invited? Pemberton brought me in. I handled some of his offshore accounts. He thought I'd enjoy the game. Reeves laughed shakily. Some enjoyment. What can you tell me about tonight? Anything unusual before the lights went out? Reeves thought about it. Marcus was needling Walsh. Trevor Walsh, the other guy, they had some kind of history. Marcus kept making comments about Trevor's wife, about business failures. Trevor was getting angry. How angry? Enough that Pemberton told them both to cool it. Said we were here to play cards, not air dirty laundry. Interesting. I made a note to press Walsh on that. What about you? Any problems with Marcus? I told you I barely knew the guy, but... Reeves hesitated. But what? During the blackout, I heard something, like fabric rustling. Someone standing up, maybe, and then a wet sound. That must have been when... Which direction? To my left. That would have been where Walsh was sitting. After Reeves left, I sat back and rubbed my eyes. The pieces were forming a picture, but it was still blurry. Pemberton had business conflicts with Marcus. Chun had financial motive. Reeves claimed to be a bystander, but heard someone move. And Walsh. Trevor Walsh had a history with the victim and was getting angry enough that someone had to intervene. Time to meet the last player. Trevor Walsh looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Early 50s, starting to gray, with the kind of face that had probably been handsome once but was now carved with lines of stress and regret. He didn't sit down when I entered the room, just stood by the window, looking out at the river. Marcus Holloway ruined my life, he said without turning around. I closed the door behind me. I'm listening. 8 years ago, Marcus and I were partners in a real estate development. He was the money, I was the vision. We were building a complex on the south side, mixed use, residential and commercial. It would have been worth $200 million. What happened? Marcus got cold feet halfway through. Said the market was shifting. Said we should pull out. I told him we were too far in. That we'd lose everything we'd already invested. We argued. Walsh turned to face me. Then Marcus went behind my back. He pulled his funding, dissolved the partnership, and bought out my share for pennies on the dollar. I was left holding debt I couldn't cover. Lost my company, my house, my marriage, everything. And yet you still played poker with him. Walsh's laugh was hollow, because Pemberton kept inviting me. Said I needed to get back in the game, rebuild my reputation. And every week, I had to sit across from the man who destroyed me and pretend we were friends playing a friendly game. That sounds like motive for murder. Of course it does. That's why I'm telling you. Because I didn't do it. But I wanted to. God, I wanted to. His voice broke. Do you know what it's like to watch someone who ruined you prosper? To see them laugh and win and live the life that should have been yours. Where were your hands when the lights went out? On the table, on my chips. I was folding, had a garbage hand. Then everything went dark, and I heard Marcus make this sound, like he'd been punched. I started to stand up, ask what happened, and then the lights came back on, and he was dead. Reeves said he heard someone move during the blackout. Someone standing up. That was probably me. I stood up when I heard Marcus. But I didn't touch him. I swear I didn't touch him. I studied Walsh carefully. He was either telling the truth, or he was a better liar than most. Who do you think did it? Walsh met my eyes. Any of us could have. We all had reasons. Pemberton's in a bidding war with Marcus. Chun lost $15 million. Reeves is desperate to impress his way into the circle. And what better way than to eliminate someone and move up? And me? I already told you about me. What about Marcus? Anyone else he had problems with? Marcus had problems with everyone. He was brilliant, ruthless, and had a gift for finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. Half the city wanted him dead. We're just the 4 who were close enough to do it. After talking to all 4 men, I went back to the card room. Castellano had kept it exactly as it was, though the body had been covered with a tablecloth. Some small gesture at dignity. I studied the room carefully, looking for anything that didn't fit. The poker table was in the center, surrounded by 5 chairs. Behind each chair was a small side table with drinks, ashtrays, personal items. The light switches were by the door, about 15 feet from where Marcus sat. The windows were closed. We were 3 floors up, so not a concern for escape routes. I examined each player's position. Pemberton had been to Marcus's left, Chun to his right, Walsh across from him, Reeves to Walsh's right, completing the circle. During the blackout, anyone could have moved. The question was who. I checked Marcus's position more carefully. The knife had entered his back at a slight downward angle between the shoulder blades. Professional. Whoever did it knew anatomy. They'd hit the heart or major vessels. Death would have been quick. But here's what bothered me. The knife was a letter opener from Castellano's desk. I'd seen it earlier. That meant this wasn't premeditated. At least not with that weapon. Someone had grabbed what was available. Unless I walked over to the light switches and examined them carefully. The panel was new, modern, touch-sensitive, but there were scratches around the screws, like someone had been working on it recently. Castellano, I called out. The manager appeared in the doorway. Yes. Who has access to the electrical systems in this room? Our maintenance staff. Why? The lights didn't just go out on their own. Someone rigged them. Someone who knew they'd need a distraction. Castellano's face went pale. Are you suggesting someone on staff? I'm suggesting someone paid someone on staff. Get me a list of everyone who's worked on this room in the last month. While he went to get the records, I continued examining the room. This was premeditated. Someone had planned Marcus's murder, rigged the lights to create a blackout, and executed it perfectly in less than a minute. That level of planning suggested this wasn't a crime of passion. This was an assassination. But which of the 4 had done it? And more importantly, how could I prove it? Castellano returned with maintenance records. 3 people had worked in this room over the last month. Routine checks, bulb replacements, cleaning. 2 of them were long-term employees with spotless records. The 3rd was new, hired 5 weeks ago. Michael Torres. Castellano read from the file. Started as an apprentice electrician. Came with good references. No issues until... Oh, until what? He called in sick tonight. First time he's missed his shift. Convenient. Too convenient. I need his address. Mr. Murray, I don't think. Castellano, someone paid your electrician to rig those lights. That makes him an accessory to murder. You want the Riverside Club's name attached to that in the headlines, or do you want me to quietly track him down? Castellano gave me the address. 20 minutes later, I was at a cheap apartment in the industrial district. The kind of place where people don't ask questions and nobody notices who comes and goes. Torres's apartment was on the 3rd floor. The door was locked, but the window next to the fire escape was open. I'm too old to be climbing fire escapes, but some investigations require flexibility. 5 minutes later, I was inside, breathing hard, and reminding myself to hit the gym more often. The apartment was sparse. Mattress on the floor, clothes in garbage bags, nothing personal except a laptop on a folding table. I opened it. No password. Torres was either trusting or stupid. His email was still open. Jackpot. There were messages from someone calling themselves J. Pemberton. Had to be Jonathan Chun, trying to hide his identity. The emails were careful, coded, but the meaning was clear. Chun had paid Torres $5,000 to rig the light panel in the card room, create a blackout that would last exactly 45 seconds. Specific date, specific time. Chun had planned this. Chun had orchestrated Marcus's murder. But then I saw another folder, this one labeled insurance. Inside were more emails, these ones explicit. Jonathan Chun detailing how he was going to kill Marcus Holloway, how he'd been planning it for months, how Marcus had humiliated him one time too many. Cost him one deal too many, and now it was time for payback. Chen hadn't just planned the murder. He documented it, which was either incredibly stupid or incredibly smart, depending on what he planned to do with the information. I photographed everything, sent copies to my email, and got out of there before Torres, or whoever might be looking for Torres, showed up back at the Riverside Club. I found Castellano in his office. 2 hours were almost up. Soon the police would have to be called, and this whole mess would become official. I know who did it, I said. Jonathan Chun. He paid your electrician to rig the lights, created the blackout, and killed Marcus Holloway. Castellano's hands trembled on his desk. Do you have proof? Emails, payment records, everything. Chun documented the whole thing. He wanted insurance, probably planning to use it as leverage if anyone ever suspected him. Blackmail material against himself. That's insane. That's desperation. Chun lost $15 million to Marcus and was about to lose billions more. Men do crazy things when they're backed into corners. Castellano stood. I'll call the police now. We'll turn over everything. The door burst open. Jonathan Chin stood there, and he had a gun pointed directly at me. I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Chin said calmly. I've been in a lot of bad situations in my 15 years as a PI. I've been shot at, beaten up, and thrown down a flight of stairs by a jealous husband who thought I was sleeping with his wife. But standing in Castellano's office with Jonathan Chin pointing a gun at my chest might have been the worst yet. The electrician talked. I said, keeping my voice level, or rather his laptop did. You documented everything. Chun, every email, every payment. Why? Chen's smile was thin. Insurance, like you said. If I ever got caught, I could claim I was being framed. That someone hacked my email, planted evidence. But that only works if the evidence never becomes public. He gestured with the gun. Sit down, Murray. Both of you. We sat. Castellano looked like he might pass out. I was calculating angles, distances, chances of survival. If I rushed Chun, none of them were good. You killed Marcus because of the biotech deal. I said, the cancer treatment. I killed Marcus because he was a parasite, Chin corrected. 20 years I've known him. 20 years of him taking and never giving back. The $15 million I lost, that was my entire fund. I had to start over, rebuild from nothing. And then when I finally found something revolutionary, something that could change medicine forever, Marcus wanted to swoop in and take credit, take profits, take everything, like he always did. So you planned this for months. Hired Torres, rigged the lights, waited for the perfect moment during your regular poker game. Exactly. Everyone would suspect everyone else. For players, all with motives. The police would investigate for months, find nothing concrete, and eventually it would become a cold case. Rich men killing rich men. The media love that story, but they lose interest when there are no answers. Except you didn't count on Torres keeping records, or me finding them. Chen's expression darkened. No, I didn't. Which brings us to our current problem. You have evidence that could send me to prison. I can't allow that evidence to exist. You're going to kill us? Castellano's voice cracked. In my own office? Actually, I'm going to kill Murray. You, Castellano, are going to say he attacked you, that I intervened to save your life. Self-defense. Tragic, but justified. Chen aimed the gun more carefully. I'm sorry, Murray. You were just doing your job, but I've come too far to stop now. The shot rang out before I could move. But it wasn't Chun who fired. Detective Sarah Chun, no relation to Jonathan, stood in the doorway, her service weapon smoking. Jonathan Chin dropped his gun and felt his knees, clutching his shoulder. LAPD, Sarah shouted, moving forward. Don't move! 2 uniformed officers rushing behind her, securing Chin while Sarah kept her weapon trained on him. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. You're becoming a habit, Murray, Sarah said, a slight smile on her face. 3rd time I've saved your life this year. Who's counting? I managed, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. I am. You owe me so many dinners at this point. I'm thinking we should just get married. Despite everything, I laughed. Sarah Chun had been my guardian angel for the last 5 years, a detective with a nose for trouble and an uncanny habit of showing up right when I needed her. We'd worked enough cases together that she knew my patterns, knew when to shadow me, knew when a case was about to go sideways. "How did you know?" I asked. "Castellano called me an hour ago, worried that 4 rich guys and a dead body might be too much for one PI to handle. I've been watching from the surveillance room." She holstered her weapon as officers cuffed Chun. "I heard everything. We'll need your statement and those emails you found. Already sent them to myself. You'll have everything." Jonathan Chun was led away, still clutching his shoulder, his perfect plan shattered. Castellano sat in his chair looking like he'd aged 10 years. And I stood there alive, thinking about how close I'd come to joining Marcus Holloway in whatever comes after this life. The trial took 3 months. Chun tried to claim insanity, then entrapment, then that he was framed by Torres. None of it worked. The evidence was too solid, the planning too meticulous. He got life without parole. Torres got 10 years for his role in the murder, accessory charges, and conspiracy. The Riverside Club survived the scandal, though several members quietly resigned. The poker game never started up again. Richard Pemberton ended up winning the Harbor District Development. Chen's arrest meant his company folded, leaving the deal open. He sent me a bottle of scotch as a thank you. It was worth more than my car. Trevor Walsh got back on his feet. With Marcus gone and Chen imprisoned, the business community was more willing to give him a second chance. Last I heard, he was developing properties in the East District and doing well. David Reeves went back to being nervous about everything. Some people are just built that way. And me? I went back to my office above Chen's Golden Dragon, back to the neon sign that flickers, the coffee maker that gurgles, the filing cabinet that doesn't stick anymore since I finally fixed it with the money from this case. $10,000 for 2 hours of work. Best payday I'd had in years. I upgraded my bourbon, bought a new desk chair that doesn't groan when I sit down, and even took Sarah Chin out for that dinner I owed her. We went to a nice place, not Riverside Club nice, but nice enough. She asked me over dessert if I ever got tired of the close calls, the guns pointed at me, the cases that nearly get me killed. Every time, I told her honestly, every single time. "So why do you keep doing it?" I thought about that, about Marcus Holloway, who probably deserved what he got, but didn't deserve to die for it. About Jonathan Chun, brilliant and ruthless, and ultimately destroyed by his own desperation. About the 4 men playing poker while death sat at their table, and how money and power don't protect you from human nature. Because somebody has to, I finally said, somebody has to look past the money and the power and the expensive suits and see the truth underneath. Somebody has to speak for the victims, even when the victims are rich bastards nobody likes. That's what justice means. It applies to everyone, or it applies to no one. Sarah smiled. That's either very noble or very stupid. Can it be both? We finished dinner and I drove home through streets slick with rain, past buildings full of people living their lives, making their choices, some good and some bad. The city looked different in the rain, cleaner, like all the dirt was being washed away. I knew it was temporary. By morning, everything would be grimy again. But maybe that's why I do this job. Because even if the city gets dirty again, even if there's always another murder and another corrupt rich guy and another case that nearly gets me killed, there are moments where justice wins, where the truth comes out, where the bad guys go to prison and the good guys, or at least the less bad guys, get to rebuild their lives. Those moments are rare, but they're enough. The name's Frank Murray. I'm a private investigator. I work out a shabby office and drive a beat-up car, and most days I'm chasing cheating spouses and missing pets. But sometimes, just sometimes, I get to solve a murder in an exclusive club where rich men play poker with death. And that makes all the close calls worth it. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications when the next Frank Murray case drops. From haunted mansions to vanishing heiresses to murders in high society, Frank Murray takes on the cases that matter and solves the mysteries nobody else can crack. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.